Gino, Buccola, and David Aragona here, and we are ready to preview a race on Thanksgiving Day over at Churchill Downs. We at DRF are very thankful for all of you out there, the customers, because without you, there is no DRF. And right now, because it is the Thanksgiving season, we have that Black Friday sale, David. Everyone out there can get 20% off everything going on in shop.drf.com in the DRF store. So use the promo code BF2024 to take advantage of that Black Friday sale. So for Thanksgiving, Churchill Downs has assembled a very nice card, David, with a couple graded stakes races on the card. The first of those is going to go as race number 9 on Thursday, November the 28th. Going a mile and an eighth. It's the grade 3 Falls City for fillies and mares, 3-year-olds and up. Looking at the field here, no surprise to see Tarifa is installed as the 9-5 morning line favorite. We sort of know this filly throughout the year. She was one of the top 3-year-old fillies very early on. And honestly, when you start looking at her overall body of work, she hasn't done a whole lot wrong this year. She makes sense that she will be one of the choices in here. She goes out for strong connections, and she comes off a win in the grade 2 Mother Goose last out.
Yeah, Tarifa certainly fits in this race going out for top connections. I think there's a question about whether or not she's taken much of a step forward since very early in her 3-year-old season when she seemed like she might be towards the head of her class. I think she's since proven that she's a cup below some of the best runners, like obviously Torpedo Anna, who's the favorite to be horse of the year. But she's run some decent races into this fall and isn't facing the toughest group of older horses assembled on Thursday.
Yeah, that's a great way to put it. She's well spotted in here. It's tough to say she's disappointing for a horse who's a 3-time graded stakes winner and hasn't done many things wrong. She usually shows up with a good effort, but yeah, we kind of expected her to be a Breeders' Cup type horse, maybe at the very top of the division after that real early success she showed us this year. So we'll see if she can continue to build on that at the end of 2024. Let's head on over to the Timeform US Pace Projector. How do they think this race shapes up for us, David? Does this surprise you at all with the little bit of a fast pace up front early?
Yeah, I was surprised to see the fast pace flag triggered for this race because you go through and there aren't too many confirmed need the lead types in the race, but there are several who have the option to go forward if they want to take advantage of it. The number 3, Peignard, obviously, can be forward. She won Gate to Wire 2-back. Musical Mischief has showed more speed in the past, has been rating in some recent starts. Even Tarifa went Gate to Wire in her most recent start. And then you've obviously got the number 6, Loved on the outside, who was showing a lot more speed last year, hasn't been the case in her last couple of races. So I think it's a little murky, and it's going to be definitely a jockey's race. Going to have to play the break and see who wants to be aggressive towards the front end.
Let's head on out and meet the field. You know, we're all going to be going around the table talking about what we're thankful for. I'm very thankful for producers Lucia and Bobby who make our life easier. And then I get to sit down and talk to a very sharp handicapper like David Aragona. Let's meet this field for race number 9 at Churchill on Thursday. Neon Icon from the inside. We have no concerns about distance with this filly, David. For me, it's just how good is she really? She actually won at a 1.25 miles in a race that was taken off the grass. And she won at a 1 1/8 miles last time out. But every time she's stepped up against Stakes Company, she seemed a little bit overmatched. How do you think she fares with this group?
Yeah, clear that stamina is no concern for Neon Icon. And maybe they were asking a little bit too much of her too soon when they tried the Alabama in just the 4th start of her career. She really didn't show up that day, then was slightly disappointed at her next start at Churchill, but was running on a little bit at the end in a race that didn't feature a ton of pace. And I think last time she took a subtle step forward because she showed the ability to sit a little bit closer to the pace than she had in some of her most recent starts, kind of tracking in the pocket that day, and was able to wheel out and beat that field in the stretch. Couple of decent runners behind her, but no doubt this is a tougher spot, and she's going to have to get a little faster from a speed figure standpoint.
One of the top contenders in here is Tarifa. She has won 3 graded stakes races this year. And I think the rest of the field combined has 3 graded stakes wins, and 2 of them came in Uruguay. So we don't even really know how good those graded stakes races are. Yeah, she's solid in here, David. She fits. She's just really honest with a group like this. But I guess the knock would be, in her 9 races, she's been in the money in 7 of them. And the 2 that she didn't hit the board were actually both at Churchill Downs. One of them was in the Oaks when she was on a sloppy track, so we could probably be very forgiving for that. The other was a race she had a little bit of trouble last year, but I guess it can be mentioned at least that she hasn't been at her best over the track at Churchill Downs, and she will likely be the favorite here.
Yeah, I think that is an interesting point that she hasn't run her best races at this venue. At a short price, I think it's valid to consider factors like that. I was just a little underwhelmed by this performance that we're taking a look at in the Mother Goose. The pace wasn't particularly fast, even though she did get into an early duel with Gunsong, and they kind of opened up on the field around the far turn. But I didn't like the way this race was sort of coming together at the end, like an accordion contracting. I mean, you could see some horses that aren't really up to this level, such as Pretty Anna, and especially the fourth place finisher, who was a huge price coming in from Finger Lakes. I mean, they were within a length of her at the wire that day. To me, that's not a great sign. I do think she ran better than those horses, but now she's got to work out a trip in a race where I don't think it's so straightforward whether she's going to be on the front end or tracking in behind. She does have versatility. I was just hoping to, at some point this fall, see the step forward from her that she hasn't given us yet.
Next one is the number 3, Painois, who has won 2 in a row and it's sharp right now. So you can understand why they would step up here and try a group of stakes company. This is a filly who will likely be forwardly placed in here. A couple starts back, she defeated a horse named Chilled, who won an allowance next out with an 85 buyer, but she will need to improve on her own top buyer, right? Because at an 82, it is one of the lower in the field. So she's just going to need to get a little bit faster in here.
Yeah, there's nothing wrong with her current form. She typically is the kind of horse that makes a good trip for herself because she's got that good tactical speed. She can comfortably set the pace if that's what needs to happen, but she's also fine tracking horses. But like you said, she just needs to take that step forward from a speed figure standpoint. And she's also moving up in class a little bit. I'm not going to be surprised if she runs well, but I wonder if her ceiling is going to be a minor reward.
The 4 Musical Mischief is grade 2 winner. Very honest. Actually was grade 1 placed on the turf as well. If we handicapped a race like this last week, some of the form lines might have looked a little different, but now you look at horses like Pigalle and Fancy. They actually got pretty well handled by 2 Sharp last week in the grade 3 Chaluki, so you wonder kind of how good that form is. But in this race, she is definitely one of the more proven, and she probably has one of the better overall resumes in here. I haven't seen her since September, but again, she feels like a good fit in this group.
Yeah, and conversely to the point you made about Tarifa, Musical Mischief seems to really step up her game at Churchill Downs. Her last 3 races here are all victories, and pretty impressive victories at that, including her most recent win in the Locust Grove, that grade 2 race that you were referencing. She was a big price that day, but didn't run like it because she traveled well every step of the way in the pocket, seemed loaded coming to the top of the stretch, and Edgar Morales just had to pick a spot for her to run through. And once the hole opened up, she shot right on through and won that race very decisively. A repeat of that effort is going to make her very tough in here, and she's another one who's got the versatility to make a good trip for herself.
Yeah, another one who's proven at 1.125 miles, so this shouldn't be an issue when it comes to distance late in the race. If she gets the trip, she's certainly good enough in here, one of the top tier contenders. Let's move to a horse who I think is an interesting price in here, the number 5 Enclosure, who is heavily regarded since early on in the career when this one was in the Bob Baffert barn. But you can tell when looking through the past performance lines that this is a filly who had some physical issues along the way because she wasn't really able to put starts together early in her career. She changed barns. She came over to the Bill Mott barn, and in 5 starts for Mott, she's run really well. She really only has 1 race where she didn't show up and fire. I thought her last race maybe a little bit better than the speed figure might suggest. She has a couple wins. She raced on a sloppy track. You could probably eliminate that. She's gotten bet in most of her starts, and I'm kind of interested in her in this spot, David, because she might actually be a playable price. And a lot of times with horses like this, when you finally get them at a playable price, it's probably good to take advantage of that. What do you think about the number 5 Enclosure in this spot?
Yeah, I do think she will be a price in this race. And as you said, there's some upside with her because she's shown potential at different times. She's got a big pedigree and is relatively lightly raced for a 4-year-old. Her recent rides, I thought, have been less than ideal for the style that has worked for her in the past. I don't know how she was last heading around the clubhouse turn last time. Just no aggression shown by Jose Ortiz. Now there's a rider switch. And I mean, remember, this is a filly who went 46-2 to the half mile when she wired a field at Ellis going this distance back earlier in the year over the summer. So she's gotten a lot more speed than that. And I'll be interested to see what Brian Hernandez and the connections decide to do with her in this race because she could be forward. She's another one that needs to take that step forward, but I suppose you could make the argument that she still does have some upside.
Love, the number 6, is a half sister to Maxfield, grade 1 winner. Real feast or famine type. I kind of mention it as all or nothing. I was an O-Town fan myself growing up, David, but she's a horse who has 4 wins in 9 career starts, and she shows up with really good efforts or she doesn't. And all 4 of those wins have been as the heavy favorite. So when she's in spots that she's supposed to win, she shows up and she crushes the field. But when she faces a little bit of adversity, she's been one that backs up a little bit. So curious to see, what are your thoughts about Loved in here?
Yeah, and maybe you chalk that up to Lasix because you look
Yeah.
at her career record and she is 4 for 5 racing with Lasix, and she is over 4, not even hitting the board without it. And she's been short prices in a lot of those races. Now, obviously, the competition gets a lot tougher when you have to go off Lasix in those stakes races. And maybe, as you were suggesting, she's just a little exposed when she has to fight for it against some better company. My big concern with her is that she seems to have trouble getting out of the gate this year.
Yeah.
She's just lost her early speed. And if she breaks a little flat footed in here, there are horses to her inside that have the tactical speed to maybe shut the door on her. So I wonder what kind of trip she's going to get. She doesn't strike me as one that really wants to pass horses or show that grit. So I didn't want to go for it, what could be a shortish price.
Lexa doesn't have a whole lot of early speed, the number 7 in here, and she will need to improve on a couple of her rivals that have gotten the better of her recently, like Musical Mischief and Enclosure. Do you give her any long shot appeal in this spot?
I thought her last race was the best that we've seen from her yet because there wasn't a whole lot of pace going on in there. And she was closing pretty well at the end behind Fancy, who just wired that field on the front end. But still, that's a 76 buyer. She's going to have to do a lot better than that to beat a field like this or even hit the board. So she wasn't for me.
Quattro e Vinte will round out the field. The Uruguayan bred runner who is a multiple group stakes winner in Uruguay. So no idea really how strong those races or where they stack up. But the only race that we saw from this 5-year-old mare in the U.S. came at Keeneland in October. I thought that was a pretty good effort. She was down inside. She was back to 5th. She was about 5 lengths off or so, but she was chasing a lone speed winner that day, and she did show some really nice late energy. I'm kind of treating her like a total wild card in here, David. What do you think about Quattro e Vinte?
Yeah, she definitely is a wild card. And if you're a little dissatisfied with some of the shorter priced options in here, this is a horse that you might want to consider. I also had trouble getting a read on her Uruguayan form and how it stacks up against this field. I did look up a couple of her races on YouTube and watch them, and she seemed to handle the dirt course down there fine. I thought she actually ran really well, 2 back in that Group 1 third place finish behind a horse that looked pretty talented, that Pacioli has beat her on several occasions. But Quattro e Vinte was like 6 wide around the turns that day and still got up for third. A performance that's better than it just looks based on the result. And you go all the way back in her form. She had 1 turf race in Uruguay towards the beginning of her career, was no factor that day, then immediately improved when she got on dirt, winning her next start by 7 lengths. So the fact that she ran so much better in her subsequent turf race coming to the U.S., and now Paulo Lobo, who I respect a ton, is switching her to dirt, feels like that last race might have just been a prep on the wrong surface, and perhaps she's just improved a lot since she last tried the grass. So I think she's a little interesting. Don't think she'll be 30-1, but at any kind of double-digit price, she interests me in this spot.
And it feels like you and I were kind of looking for the same thing as we move to our selections here. We weren't really in love with some of the shorter price horses, and I use them underneath and in the mix, but I was looking for a price in here because I don't think the horses that are going to be the shortest prices are all that scary and overwhelming. So I went to the 5 Enclosure, who I think could offer us some really nice value. You're doing the same thing. You're looking for a big price with the horse to the outside.
Yeah, Tarifa, she's just exposed at this point. Musical Mischief, last time was the time at 16-1. She's going to be a fraction of that price today. And I wanted to find somebody else who could be under the radar. Perhaps that is Quattro e Vinte, who should appreciate switching back to the dirt here.
Happy Thanksgiving to everyone. Don't forget about the Black Friday sale. That'll go all the way through December the 2nd. Good luck.
Hey, let me give you a hot tip. If you liked the content that you've seen before, click on the like and subscribe button right here. And of course, for more DRF videos like Race of the Days, stakes previews, click on the videos right here.